Welcome to episode 662 of the Aussie Tech Heads, recorded on the 19th of December 2019. Aussie Tech Heads is brought to you by startnewcompany.com.au. Register your company fast, easy and direct with ASIC. All documentation provided and held in your account for downloading at any time. If you're an accountant or other professional, you're also able to brand all your documents with your company name. Coming soon, ABN, TFN and trusts. And special discount code for ATH listeners at the cart, use ATH20 for a $20 discount. And athwebhosting.com.au. Servers operate on SSD drives, immediate activation, SSL certificates, Aussie support, domain registration, easy install of WordPress, Joomla and Drupal. And we have back again Australia's two top podcasters. I'm your host, Jason Oakley. I'm joined this week by this guy over here, Will Tompkinson. Hey, Will.
Got you. We got it right
Of
last
course.
Dear.
What me worry? How's things? Bloody hot.
Yeah. That's one of the joys of living.
I've got my AC on in the bedroom here.
It's just horrible. I haven't got. I'm hoping I'm having a week off over Christmas. I'm going to get the aircon put in here.
Yep.
Not the fan on. The fan just doesn't even want to know about it. Even the fan's like, it's too hot for this. So
we got our smoke back today. Hooray! The whole town's smoky again.
Yeah, we
lost it for 2 days. Now it's back.
End of last week, we got rid of it for a couple of days, and the southerly picked up and just come back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
What's going on there?
Have you looked at burning. Have you looked at some of the maps and stuff? The
fires near me,
or just in general, like just the maps with the fires on it.
Yep.
It's just absolutely ridiculous.
I put the app on my phone, so it tells me when there's fires near me all the time now.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different, there's lots of different websites and whatever. And some of them have better detail than others, but one that I found, I'm just trying to find it if I can get to it quickly. Yeah, of course I can't find it now. But they have like each individual fire is actually marked on the map, and you can zoom. Like they use a really, really high resolution satellite image, so you can actually zoom right in and see, like, especially out where my sister is out of west of Gympie out there, like you can zoom right in and follow the roads and find where they are and find where there's and because it's got such high quality, you can see what side of the hill the fire's on and if it's going to come up and if it's going to hit a valley and slow down or
high tech stuff, man.
It's really good for tracking, and I think they update it 4 times a day, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's really good for tracking the fires, and there's 2 or 3 different versions. There's one that does uses a satellite and just does the hotspot part, so it can just detect where the hot lines are running through and stuff like that.
All right. Yep.
And then there's another one that there's one that uses I don't know if it uses sound waves of some description, but it picks up the smoke plumes, and it can actually show you the outline of where the smoke from that particular fire and how it's travelled and how it's got to where it's got.
Wow.
And they're getting pretty cool with some of the stuff they're doing.
I'd like to get Glenn to share links in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm just quickly scrolling through my history to find it, but I was only there the other day, but I got so much stuff in my history I can't find it. But
you've got so much history.
I got a huge history. It's very, very.
That's what the girls say.
That's very uninteresting, but it's huge. So
it's got huge tracts of land.
That's it.
But I've been busy doing some C and Z80 assembly programming for VZ200, VZ300 computers. I started on a new, what was originally going to be just a graphics library to work with the Z88DK development kit, and has now progressed to a fully fledged VZ games library that I'm working on. So at the moment, you can write fonts into high res screen in whatever colors you want. And I've just added on the ability to put sprites on the screen and
Nice.
detect sprite collision. So I tested it on a real VZ300 that I've got and had it drawing 100 sprites to the screen at once, moving them around, and then working out if two of them had collided or not, displaying that on the screen. So that was quite fun, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm adding in lots more features. So the secret is that I haven't told anyone I'm actually developing a game at the same time. So when I need features for the game, I program it into the library, and then I can share the finished library so everyone else can make games with it. So it's a dual purpose thing. I wanted to make a new game, and I needed all these functionality to work. So I figured I might as well like write a game library myself, and then once my game is completed, I'll have enough of the features that I use to make the game complete, and then can release the library and other people can. But there's only one other guy I know who's down south of Sydney, out and then out west a bit, who's actually developing anything for VZ as well, for software or games or anything. So there'll be two of us, but he's keeping up with all the stuff that I'm secretly telling him info about it and showing him screenshots and video of what's happening and stuff. So he's excited. So that's somebody anyway.
I'm sure the VZ's impressed about 100 sprites at a time.
Yeah, it was going nuts. But I was originally doing it all in Notepad++, and then I've moved it all over into Visual Studio from Microsoft, which makes it much easier to develop there, and it's also got it syncing to GitHub. So I've got backups and copies of everything, which is the most high tech thing I've done since I was doing the coding for the Fitbit apps, which I was also synchronized a couple of those to GitHub, but I don't usually do it. Most of it's just on Dropbox. But
Are you trying to tell me that a Microsoft program actually makes things easier?
it is, yeah, and it's free. It's got tons and tons of extensions and plugin stuff to make it things much easier. But it gets a bit confused when I try and do inline assembly in a C code program, which the compiler, the Z88DK compiler, understands, but Microsoft Visual Studio Code is like, I don't know why you're putting these weird things in the middle here. That's not C. And I'm like, no, it's not. But don't worry, the compiler's fine with it. It's like, well, this is gonna that is wrong, and it's gonna make this wrong, which means that's wrong, and start squiggly line. Like when you're doing a spell check in your Word document, puts those red squiggle lines under it, does it for your programming too. And it's like, well, if you have this weird shit up here, then this down here is going to be wrong, and that's not going to work because that was wrong. And it tries to automatically detect stuff. And you're like, dude, just settle down. This is a common thing to do inline assembler in the C. No, I don't like it. I just don't like it. I don't want you to do it. And I'm like, well, tough.
Sounds like the Arduino programming that I'm going through at the moment.
Tell us about it.
Well, I'm more of a hardware person than a software person. I always have been, even way back when I used to build computers. And I'd much prefer to sit there, assemble the computer, get it all working, then palm it off to somebody to do the software, and it's still exactly the same. I got an Arduino. I started off on a Mega because I had a couple of, Unos, because I had a couple of Unos floating around. I had all that breadboarded and prototyped and everything, and I've now compressed that all down. I've made a like a proto board, which is like the next step up from a breadboard. It's like a soldering version of a breadboard. So I've put it all on a proto board with a nano, and I've got all that working, and I've got all the separate hardware components working, and I've got all the different sensors and all the different external hardware functioning all with it, and I can make every sensor work individually, but I can't make them all work and then switch to the next sensor and read that, then switch to the next sensor and read that, and then go back to the start.
Sounds like you need a software guy.
Yeah,
I wonder where we could find one. I haven't heard of any.
If only I knew somebody who did software, it'd be fine. But yeah,
all day my job is doing software.
So I spent the last I wonder if I got a picture of it. I spent the last 2 months on the hardware development, getting it from theory stage to breadboard stage, and from breadboard stage to that's not a real good photo, but you kind of get the idea of
Nice.
what it was. Just that's just like, you know, that's literally what the breadboard was like. Just a bunch of wires on the breadboard.
I'm sure the people on the audio podcast are going to love that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great. It'll be a great one. But well, there's a slightly better picture. You can actually see the Arduino there.
He's showing us a mess of wires.
Yeah, exactly. That's that. The problem is then getting it to work on a breadboard is one thing, because you literally can, you can make a wire run over the top of another wire and around another wire, but then when you go onto a PCB where you've got tracks
and they can't cross,
you now suddenly have to completely redesign everything you've just done. And I haven't even gone to a PCB yet. I've gone to a proto board where I can still add wires. The next step from a proto board is a PCB, which I'm now starting to look at, because obviously a proto board is just that. It's a prototyping board. It's sort of you stepping.
You're not going to run it 24/7 on that.
You don't want to have to rely on the proto board, because it's not designed for that. The next thing is to build the PCB, but to build the PCB, there's actually the Arduino, some of the apps for that. There is actually a program. You design it on the breadboard in the same way you've got it on the thing, and then it goes to a proto board, and then it goes to a PCB. Well, the program got it to the proto board okay, but it can't figure out how to make it fit onto a PCB. I'm like,
there's too many wires crossing over. I cannot compute. Error.
Yeah, pretty much. So now I've got to completely redesign the entire hardware side of it to fit onto a PCB. And then I've got to make the PCB, and then I've got to etch it, and then I've got to put...
Did you end up getting anywhere with your CNC?
Yes. I did get somewhere.
Cool. And on to the next thing. So
it's sitting over there, about 90% completed. Yeah, I've run into a couple of little issues, which I actually think are just stepper motor related. I think the stepper motors I've got, they don't have enough torque to hold the head. So when the head tries to engrave, they actually creep a little bit. So I just need to get, I've got stepper motors and EMA 17s are the standard once you find all the 3D printers and stuff. But when I built that, I didn't have full-size NEMA 17s. I got the pancake ones, which are a thinner stepper motor, and they just don't have the holding torque that the full-size ones have got. So I'll get another set of stepper motors in, and then theoretically that should be good to go, which I need that. That's the next thing. I've got to get that working so that I can cut out the PCB board. So that's been fun.
That's why I thought I'll bring in the CNC into it, since it's obviously got to be involved somewhere.
Yeah, it's sitting on that other table behind me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 computer towers stacked around it at the moment. All the dead remnants of the computers I've killed in the last couple of months.
Speaking of computers, how's your new one surviving?
Good. My mixer is completely toast. It's in about... I've pulled the case of it, and I've desoldered the boards, and I've replaced.
That's an interesting definition of good.
It's good insofar as it's currently working right now.
Oh.
Which is up until about 10 minutes before the show started, it wasn't.
Oh.
So
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, pretty much. It's done. I have a new one coming. I just wasn't here for this week's show, but.
What do they have, like M-Audio or something?
This one is Focusrite, which is, it's a commercial quality mixer.
Yep.
But you read the forums, and apparently there's a common fault. They hit like 4 years old, and they just fall apart. So.
What about your new one? Same.
I had. There's still. I'm tossing out which one I'm going to get yet. I haven't decided. It's only. It's nothing special. It's only like a 4-channel, but it's.
It's better than me. I got none at all. So
well, I've got 3 mics, and they all XLR mics, so they all need a mixer to run. And the question is, do I go for a USB mic, which can present its own problems? Or you can get an XLR to USB converter, and they're always crappy and noisy. Or do I buy a cheap mixer, which gives me a couple of other flexibility options, like doing mix minus for stuff like this? So, I don't know yet. We'll see.
See how it goes.
Oh man, it's too hot. My throat's already given out. It's going to be a long
Should we
night.
get quickly started into some news then?
Let's make it happen.
Sounds good. All right. Apple hasn't said how many watches and AirPods it sold, but they're widely believed to be the dominant players in each of their categories, and in the grand Apple tradition, the envy of competitors that scramble to ape them. Neither of these hardware successes has matched the impact or scale of Jobs' greatest hits. Even the iPad, despite annual unit sales that are sharply down from its heyday, generated almost as much revenue by itself in fiscal 2019 as the entire category of wearables, home, and accessories, where the Apple Watch and AirPods are slotted by Apple. Cook does bear the responsibility for a series of actions that screwed up the Macintosh for years. The beloved mainstream MacBook Air was ignored for 5 years. At the other end of the scale, the Mac Pro, mainstay of professional audio, graphics, and video producers, was first neglected, then reissued in 2013 in a way that put form so far ahead of function that it enraged the customer base. Some insiders think Cook allowed Ive's design team far too much power and that the balance Jobs was able to strike between the designers and engineers was gone, at least until Ive left the company earlier this year. The design first culture that took root under Cook struck again with the MacBook Pro, yielding new laptops so thin their keyboards were awful and featuring USB C ports that required sleek Macs to be used with ugly dongles. Apple has only recently retreated back to decent keyboards on the latest MacBook Pro, and it issued a much more promising MacBook Pro. But dongles are still part of the Apple experience across its product lines. Cook's other success this decade was to nurture the iPhone along as smartphone sales first plateaued, then began to decline. The biggest change he made came in 2014 before the dip when Apple introduced two new iPhone 6 models, which belatedly adopted big screens that the Android phones had pioneered. Sales took off like a rocket, and there's been a big iPhone option every year since. So, weren't they the ones who said that nobody wants to carry around a giant phone or something?
They were saying, but yeah, well, I mean, you know,
And nobody wants a pen, which they also now have.
I was just reading that the Black Friday sales, they sold over 3 million AirPods.
Wow.
Just on the Black Friday sales.
That's pretty good. I wonder how the Samsung ones are doing. What do they call them? Earbuds or something?
I can't remember what they're called. A mate of mine actually has those. He's a diesel mechanic and he works obviously in a loud workshop and stuff like that, and he loves them. He reckons they're great. So,
yep.
But yeah, they're saying that let's see if I can find that story again. AirPod sales.
Where's the Mr. T video gone?
Oh, I don't know. Does it not come? Why didn't it come up? It's selected. Hang on. Let me do it again. There we go.
Hey.
Yeah, AirPod sales hit 3 million over Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So many as 16 million AirPods sold in 2017. And then 35 million sold in 2018.
Galaxy Buds.
And then 16 million was sold in the first half of 2019. So Galaxy Buds, that sounds like a movie.
Yep.
It's
two
it's like Galaxy Quest meets Airbuds.
two guys who are cops that go on a Galaxy Quest together. They're the buds. They still don't get along.
Speaking of Galaxy Quest,
$197 for Galaxy Buds.
Whoa. What did I do? How did I do that?
We're professionals, damn it.
We're damn it professionals.
Leave it to the professionals.
So
Galaxy Quest, yes?
Yeah, Galaxy Quest. Been 20 years, celebrating its 20th anniversary in this month, actually. It was released as a Christmas movie back in 20 years ago, because they did well, because it was being made at the same time as Gladiator. So there was their big action film for the year. And they didn't have a Christmas film, so they edited it a little bit, sold it as a family-friendly film, and made it their Christmas release.
Didn't you say it was supposed to be like a bit more M-rated or something?
Originally it was, yeah. It was very, very adult-orientated.
Can we have that version, please? Deadpool did this G-rated.
The only people that ever got to see it was the first screening audience. They didn't get. No one else got to see it, unfortunately. There's still a couple of bits in the movie that you do see.
I want to see.
where they didn't even bother reshooting. They just literally dubbed over the top of it, and it's just like you can tell that at that point they're disdained for having to dub over it, and they're like, nah, just leave the original video there. It was quite funny. But what I was getting at there is, well, two things. Screen Junkies, who does the honest reviews. They've just done an honest review on
with the
Galaxy
guy
Quest.
with the deep voice.
Yeah, well, the guy who's doing it now isn't quite as deep as the guy who normally does it, because the guy who normally does it is actually a soldier, and he's actually been redeployed. So the guy who's doing it at the moment is good, but it's not quite the same.
One man can save the world.
So basically, yeah. So they've just done the honest trailers thing for Galaxy Quest. You want to see the...
It's about time.
Yeah, that's what everyone said. Everyone's like, what do you mean you haven't done one yet? So, but I'll quickly show you the part I was talking about where she says, in the movie, I won't play it because I'll get copyrighted, but I'll play the video part of it. In the movie, she says, screw that. But if you watch...
Screw that.
She does not say screw that. Screw does not start with an F.
Are you sure?
But
maybe it's through. It's one of those Boston accents.
But what I was getting at is that Screen Junkies and Fandom, who do a lot of independent documentaries and independent indie movies, that sort of stuff, they have released a Galaxy Quest documentary. And I actually bought it. It's $8 to buy. It's well worth buying for $8 because you get a 4K downloadable video.
Does that go for like an hour and a half or something?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. You get a 4K downloadable video, and you get the option you can stream it as well. So for $8, it's worth getting. But basically, it's got all the cast. It's got cameos.
Did they get any interview with Alan before he's gone?
No, they did put a couple of interviews in there that were on the DVD.
Oh, okay, good.
As a special extra. But they interview, a lot of just fans and a lot of stuff like that. They talk about the production of it, how it changes. They talk about how it was originally supposed to be, how they changed producers and completely changed the way the movie went. They talk about all the different casting options that was supposed to was supposed to happen.
I'd listen to Brent Spiner talking about stuff.
It's funny because Brent Spiner does his normal Picard impersonation. It's hilarious. He does a what did I click on? He does a really good job actually. It's quite funny. Then you got producers and set designers and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, nice. We'll put the link in the show notes for that one too.
So yeah, we can go to journeyman.tv to get that, but it's definitely worth spending the $8 on and getting that. If you like Galaxy Quest, and honestly don't know anybody who doesn't, I haven't actually come across anybody who doesn't like Galaxy Quest. It flunked hugely because of the way it was marketed in the cinema, but it's become one of those cult movies that's done really well since.
What's happened with a few things?
Rocky Horror is a classic example. Even Back to the Future, to a lesser extent, was flunked in the cinema.
Labyrinth, yeah.
It
was the biggest Jim Henson flunk. He got depressed for so many years because nobody liked it and they crapped all over it, and then it became a cult hit and everybody loved it. But his son said he was so depressed, he's like, I'm never going to do another movie. I didn't know I was this terrible at making movies.
Yep. Oh, well, that's the thing, stupid thing. It's but that happened a fair bit on this as well. On the production for this, they went through 3 or 4 different producers, and they just couldn't. Nobody, everybody sort of had an idea in their head how they wanted it to be, but what is going on? Anyway, Oh, it just popped up. Chrome said there's been a data breach and your passwords have been whatever. I don't care. But yeah, this and everybody come on and they all.
What I mainly felt watching,
in a weird sort of way, everybody, even though they left and somebody else came on, that person who came on somehow managed to manipulate the film just that little bit more and pushed it just the direction it ended up being, and it was a very, very organic film from end to end. How it basically fell into place.
Yep.
Instead of it's nothing at all like it was originally. Like, it's literally the complete opposite of what they originally envisioned it to be.
And it turned out so well.
So,
And if we're going to be talking about shows, we have to mention The Simpsons hit their 30th anniversary yesterday.
Oh, wow, really? I knew it was
30 years of The Simpsons. It's
no
nearly as old as you, son.
No wonder The Simpsons did it first.
Yeah. They did everything.
Yeah, there's nothing they haven't really done yet. Yes. I was actually sitting there thinking the other night about some of the episodes I've seen. I'm like, there's literally, you go back through their back catalogue and there's probably nothing that they haven't actually they haven't covered. It's quite funny. So,
do you have that was your story, sir?
Oh, yeah, that'll do.
Alrighty, log me in.
Stupid autoplay videos, I tell you what.
Log Me In announced this morning that it's agreed to be sold for $4.3 billion to affiliates of Francisco Partners and Evergreen Coast Capital Corporation, a private equity affiliate of Elliott Management Corporation. Purchase price comes out to $86.05 per share in an all-cash deal. The company had a 52-week high of $96.87 per share and a low of $62.02. Purchase price represents a 25% premium on the closing share price on September 18th, which the company reports was the day media reports began to leak the company was up for sale. Bill Wagner, President and CEO at Log Me In, said in a statement that price reflects the high value of the company and will give stockholders a meaningful return. As you would expect, he was also optimistic that the partnership with Francisco and Evergreen will help the company going forward. As for the private equity firms, they're getting a broad portfolio of products, including unified communications and collaboration. Log Me In bought Jive Communications for $357 million in 2018 to give it deeper penetration in the unified communications market. Its most well-known product is probably GoToMeeting, which has had to compete with the likes of Zoom, WebEx, BlueJean, Google Hangouts, and others in a crowded video conferencing space.
Sure.
The company bought GoToMeeting from Citrix in 2016 for $1.8 billion.
Yeah, I was just looking at the acquisition for Jive Communications.
Yep.
Jive Communications is not to be confused with Jive Software. The Slack competitor in enterprise collaboration itself was acquired last year by Aura. However, it's also a bigger area of enterprise communications. It doesn't actually add a suite of unified communication services that will complement and expand on LogMeIn's existing collaboration products. Jive has 20,000 customers globally. Paid $350 million for 20,000 customers. They must have had some really good software hiding in there somewhere.
Who knows what it's got?
They were fixed line software, so they were a telco base, an internet telco, effectively, by the looks of it. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I have gone away from LogMeIn in recent times.
I'm TeamViewer all the way.
Well, yeah, TeamViewer is fine. I mean, for a lot of stuff, I actually use the built-in Chrome extension now.
Oh, okay.
It does 95% of the stuff you ever needed to do.
Yep.
But yeah, I went to TeamViewer. LogMeIn lost me a few years ago where they I don't know what happened. I don't know if they had a bad servers or if they something, but you could never get a decent connection. And even when you set it to black and white and low resolution, you're always getting massive lag. I mean, move a mouse across the screen, there's 10 seconds lag. It's just like
no, you can't do that.
So I sort of lost interest in them a while ago. So it explains why they're selling. Really, I mean, I guess
get out while getting's good.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. There is open source alternatives happening now that are allowing, like, to access data. You don't necessarily need to access the PC remotely anymore. Even a normal consumer grade NAS now, you can access remotely. You don't need to log into a PC to log into your network. You can do it remotely now. So the need to actually physically be connected to a computer is becoming less and less, and the option to use your mobile device, or as I said, if you need to, the Chrome has a built-in thing now. I think Opera's got a built-in thing now. Steam, for example, you go to the Steam client, and it has an option. I wonder if it'll let me do it. Probably won't let me do it now. Though I don't have a.
Not while you're recording.
I've got no. It'll open it, but I just don't know if it'll show it up now that it doesn't show. That's interesting. It doesn't recognize Steam window as a. Huh. That's interesting. But anyway, there's even an option in Steam now where I can log into my Steam account on another computer, and as long as the game's installed on my system, I can stream it from my computer to the computer I've logged into, and my computer does all the actual processing, and all it does is stream
video and audio,
and streams the video. Yeah, basically. So, it's
kind of like that Google Stadium thing that's coming out.
Yeah. Steam, and this goes back a few years, they've been trying to do it, and the biggest problem has been latency.
Yeah.
But they kind of get around that now. I've noticed in a lot of the games where you are streaming it, the game sort of error corrects almost. It gives itself, say in a racing game where you're moving fairly quick and realistically you don't have a lot of time and lag would be a big issue. But what it sort of does, it already sort of has, say, the 3 most prominent decisions pre-made, and whichever one you get closest to, it sort of does it. It's really hard to explain, but it's sort of, that's sort of the way it seems to work.
Guess is what you might be doing.
Yeah, to some degree, it takes the most favourable outcome of what you're about to do and sort of gives you that as priority. And if you do something else, it'll still do it, but you can notice just that slightest bit of controller latency difference between what it's expecting and what you do. Yep. Sometimes. So, but I mean, obviously the faster internet's helping that. But I don't know if, like, even TeamViewer and even a couple other ones, I don't know if paid remote access is really relevant.
That's probably why they wanted to sell out, because nobody's going to use it soon.
Well, it's completely inadvertently, but leads into my next story, which is basically the PC is dead, long live the cloud PC. And they're talking about, so basically, ZDNet recently pointed out that a decade ago, people were predicting the death of the PC, and it was only for events to show that the PC was still alive and well. And it was about 10 years ago where they started doing the holders for the mobile phones that would display onto your monitor, and you'd use your keyboard and mouse, and so it's starting to get there. The PC will live on for now, but they're basically saying that they're becoming less and less PC-centric in your day-to-day use of it, and it's becoming more cloud-based, which is called desktop as a service, or a DAS, cloud-based model. Microsoft's giving up on Windows on the PC in its place. Microsoft is rolling out Windows Virtual Desktop. The Windows Virtual Desktop client is available across Windows, Android, Mac, iOS, HTML5. In other words, if you have a browser and a PC, you'll be able to run Windows on a DAS.
What does the browser run on that's on the PC? They talking like Google Chrome
servers
devices?
Effectively. Yeah, like they're not talking necessarily PCs, but like even your phone, you can connect to your phone now and use it
Samsung DeX.
Yeah, or even your TV, or like you're not locked down. As I was saying before, you're not locked down to a PC. Microsoft is promoting it's not just a Windows desktop alternative, but it's path forward for die-hard Windows 7 users. This is Brad Anderson, Vice President for Microsoft 365, which, take it or leave, it's still one of the worst things they ever did, but anyway. With the end of extended support for Windows 7 coming in January 2020, we also understand some customers need to continue to support Windows 7 legacy applications as they mitigate. That should have been migrate, I think, to Windows. That is migrate. I just can't read. To Windows 10 to support the need. You can use Windows Virtual Desktop to virtualize Windows 7 desktops with free extended security updates until January 2023. Which is interesting because if you virtualize Windows 7, then you get updates. If you run the legit version, you don't.
Well, hopefully this Windows desktop thing is going to save you having to do updates all the time.
If you're really stuck on Windows 7, have a small business, your best path forward. There's no easy way to buy issue patches, even if you're willing to pay for them. As clear as Chris and Microsoft says, the future of Windows on the cloud, not on the desktop. In the meantime, Microsoft is exiting even more control over your existing desktop. For example, users recently discovered they have no choice but to view small banner ads in the Windows 10 Mail. Who uses that? And calendar apps. So the desktop PC and its portable laptop sibling will be with us forever. But most people can get back with smartphones and tablets. Most people who do not need a keyboard and decent sized display. So yeah, look, it's it was always going to happen. It's getting. I mean, even the programs that you're using on a day-to-day basis are getting cloud-based now.
Yeah.
You know, most of the stuff we use at work, we use Google Drive for all our document storage. We use Xero and Vend for our point-of-sale stuff and our account-keeping stuff. You know, it's all online. Office 365, you know, as much as I hate it, it's shared between computers online. Or if not that, I tend to use either Google Docs for that or OpenOffice. The other one I can never remember the name of that's actually quite a good alternative. Why can't I never remember what it's called? I think it's actually Libra. Yeah, Libra. I think it's actually older than OpenOffice. There's smoke.
And when you've got Dropbox and OneDrive and all these things, you don't really keep much local.
No, you can run entire corporations out of Dropbox.
You can put a database on the Dropbox, even if it's like 400 gigabyte database. Who would do that? I don't know. Damn, that was a crazy story. No security problems there with all the customer data sitting in the
No, it's perfectly secure. I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Why do we have terabytes of network data going through constantly from all our... Really?
Yeah, look, I think it is becoming more and more. I can see a situation where, for example, and I'm going to use telemarketers because it's one of the first things that pops into my head that's a 24/7 thing, or even a tech support, I guess, that you're literally going to have your workstation, you rock up to work, you take your phone, you stick it in the dock. This is your hardware device. This has got 95% of what you need. The dock literally just throws it up onto a monitor, gives you a mouse and a keyboard, and everything else is done through here. So when your shift's finished, you take your phone with you take your work with you, and then when you come in the next day, it doesn't matter where you sit in the office, you drop it back in. So I can see a situation where that's going to become, you know, you think of where's a place that they've got a lot of computers and a lot of stuff and no one does any work? Centrelink. I think it's Centrelink,
for example. Sounded like... I'll eat up.
Centrelink, for example, would be perfect for that because once they've served their 3 customers, they can take their work with them and go out and have coffee and sit down and serve, you know, and put their phone in somewhere else and not do anything with it. So maybe that's not a good example, but
they can take all the customer data if someone nicks your phone.
Yeah, well, probably not. I mean, with the security on phones these days, and with the option to fingerprint and retina and face
you just
recognition,
chop their finger off and cut their eyeball out, son.
And auto encryption and everything that's on a phone. Realistically, a phone's probably more secure than a PC, especially if you have physical access to it. Because the PC, really, if you've got physical access to a PC, it's not secure at all.
Yep.
It's so easy. You can throw a thumb drive on with Linux on it. You've got full access to the computer. It's not secure. A phone is actually, even if you physically have the phone, it's much, much harder to pull data and to be...
Especially if it's an iPhone.
No, that's easy. Just ask the feds to do it for you.
They're good at finding somebody who can do that.
So look, I think I don't necessarily think the PC is dead. There's video editing.
Steve Jobs said 10 years ago it was dead.
Yeah, I mean, there's video editing, there's graphic design, there's...
Developers.
The gaming, there's... Well, you don't necessarily need a fully blown PC for developing.
I need to run an emulator on the desktop.
Yeah, but they're not that... Especially older ones aren't that intense. But you're right, like, especially if you're doing something that is... I know that even... The reason I hung out from going to Windows 10 for so long is that Focusrite didn't offer drivers for this mixer.
Yep.
In Windows 10, they only had Windows 7, and you could run Windows 10 or Windows 7 compatibility mode, but you drilled your performance like it hurt so bad, you increased a lot of latency and lag. So, emulation can be quite tough, but does the average person, like my mother-in-law, she doesn't need a PC. We got her one of those little NUCs, the little Intel, and it's brilliant for what she does. It sits there, SSD hard drive, no moving parts, no fans, nothing, just sits onto the back of the monitor, has a monitor, keyboard, mouse, done. It's wireless, there's nothing to set up, and it browses internet all day, which is plays movies on YouTube. That's literally its life. And it's fine for that. So
it uses SFA electricity.
Yeah, well, probably uses less than them. Actually, it does use less than the monitor. The monitor's like 75 watts and it's like 45 watts. So I can see a situation where NUCs or phones or some form of cloud-based, like even a TV with enough processing power to run a HTML5 script in a browser, and you can literally have it sitting on a server in a server farm somewhere. So I don't think PCs will ever die, but I think the traditional thought on what we've needed a PC for will change.
Yep.
Point of sale systems already, you see a lot of places now are literally just using a tablet.
Square.
Or even Vendon that runs on a tablet, but they run on a tablet and they run... Even the traditional FPOS is disappearing. There's Square or there's PayPal. There's other options over FPOS now as well. And quite often you'll go somewhere, like you walk into a Telstra store or somewhere like that, there's like 8 staff in there and they've all got their own tablet they walk around on and do sales and stuff. So the thought of a PC in the real sense of the word, a personal computer, a device that sits there and does exactly what you want it to do. The definition, it's still going to be a PC, but just the concept of a PC is going to change.
Sounds good.
If that makes sense. Yeah. Probably doesn't make sense, but I know what I mean. That's the most important part, right?
Somebody does.
As long as one person knows what I mean, even if it's only me.
That's debatable sometimes. Rewound, the basic music player app released last week that you could skin to make your iPhone look remarkably like an iPod Classic, has been pulled from the App Store, according to Rewound blog post published on Medium. They report that the blog says that Apple pulled the app because it copied the iPod's design, charged for Apple Music features, and people could mistake the app for an Apple product. The blog makes the case that the app had a pretty basic interface that looked nothing like an Apple app, and the iPod Classic skins didn't come pre-installed. You had to download them after you installed the app. They asked Apple for comment. Haven't heard anything back yet. The Rewound blog says the iOS app can't be updated without breaking the app for all 170,000 plus users, but the developer Louis Anslow says he'll attempt to bring the app back in some way. On a GoFundMe page for continued development of Rewound, Anslow said he'll try some tweaks to get Rewound resubmitted on the App Store, and that the GoFundMe will help support development of a web app and an Android app. On the GoFundMe page, Anslow said it isn't clear if Apple will ever allow Rewound back into the App Store, and states we are not promising fully finished versions of any of the apps.
That's actually a really cool looking app.
Right?
I actually like that. I can imagine.
I would like it.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, come on. Is it really his fault that they developed that app 10 years before they developed the phone to put the app on?
Yeah.
Of course, it's one
They
of those.
should hire him.
Yeah. And of course, that's one of those videos that plays once per page reload. But well, there we go.
Yeah, I reckon Apple should team up with him and say, look, this is a fantastic idea. People are going to love it. People with Apple nostalgia syndrome are going to be like, yeah, I want to do that. So, yeah, make him Apple official developer for iPod-like features.
Oh, for sure. I like it, and I think like, are you really going to think that suddenly you have an iPad? An iPad. Like you know, oh look, I did have an iPhone a minute ago. Where did it go?
Yeah. They're just too worried. Oh, people will think that we made that. No, they won't.
No,
it's not
because
called
it's good.
the Apple thing, is it?
I mean, can you...
It's bloody called Rewound, not iPod Classic.
Enslow, who's the guy who did it, he's actually... I was just reading one of his tweets. He's saying that he's looking at porting it across to Android.
Yeah, they'll let that happen.
They'll allow it through, and he said then Apple can have twice as many devices as it has now.
Then Apple can kiss his proverbial.
Pretty much. It's
Enslow, wasn't he the guy in Police Academy who
goes... No, that's Winslow. And that's his real name, not his stage name. I was close to Onslow, who was the dude out of Keeping Up Appearances, the brother of Mrs. Bouquet.
Bouquet residence.
So that was, yeah. Oh, come on. These autoplay videos, I tell you what. Why? There's not one person on the face of the earth who enjoys it.
Because then we can tell our ad sponsors that they got 50,000 views when nobody watched them and they all hate it.
Speaking of annual views, Pornhub. Annual views, yes. Pornhub has released its annual view review. It contains some noteworthy data. So basically, I had to check the page first to see if I could scroll to this story. The data's interesting because Google hasn't updated its own dashboard on how many devices on each version of Android since May, so there haven't been any public figures about current state of Android OS adoption. And with Pornhub being one of the top 50 sites on global Alexia rankings...
Isn't it the top 50
yeah, well... It's somewhat plausible the data in the ballpark of 2019 Android OS usage. Pornhub doesn't know how many devices are on each version of Android, but it reports that for all of 2019, 48% of its Android traffic came from Pi, which is last year's major update, and 23% from Oreo, which is 2017's, and 12% from Nougat, which is 16's. Android 10, or Q on the chart below, apparently only represents 2% of this year's traffic. But that's not too surprising. Android 10 was only released in September and hasn't rolled out to a lot of phones yet.
Still some lollipop and jelly bean.
Yeah.
Wow. Kit Kat.
Yeah. Kit Kat 1%.
Marshmallow.
So, Pornhub data only measures how much traffic it got from each version of Android, though, while Google's dashboard tracks how many devices are running each one. But at least Pornhub data can give us an idea of what's happening out there. It's unclear if Google ever update their dashboard again, and Google may update the page. Hasn't updated the page since October 2018. The lack of updates has been due to an unexpected loss of source of usage data. And that previously monthly updates the page should have returned to regular pace, but so far they haven't. So somebody broke their database, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting people have been speculating on uptake for a while, and of course, you leave it to Pornhub to
have the definitive answer.
And actually, if you want a good read, Pornhub.
Don't go to Pornhub.
No, seriously, Pornhub have really become more than okay. They're obviously
go there for the articles,
but they, in reality, they are becoming almost like YouTube and how YouTube started. They've got a lot of non-porn on there, but they don't censor their stuff and whatever. But they have these really awesome... I'll quickly flick over to it. I'll just check the page. Hang on. Can I do? Because sometimes they have pop-up ads. Is there pop-up ads?
With naughty bits on them.
Yeah, that is one downside. Even though I've got pop-up blocker enabled, it doesn't always catch them. No, it looks fairly safe. Okay, so
you never want to catch anything from Pornhub.
Where are we? There we go. So basically, they do a year in review, and they do this every year. And what it is,
can't be worse than the YouTube year in review.
No, it's better actually. It's a up to date on the hottest trends, terms, searches, a recap of everything that happened in this year. And basically, obviously, there's so many different things. Like the year in numbers starts off with, 42 billion visits to their site, 115 million hits a day, 39 billion searches, 6.83 million video uploads, 1.36 million hours of new content, which is 169 years if you were to try and watch it, by the way. So if you started watching videos in 2019... So if you started watching 2019's new videos in 1850, you would still be watching them.
Wow.
18,000 terabytes of data a day, 6,597 petabytes of data transferred this year. I believe a petabyte is 100 million terabytes. I need to double check.
If you copied all that data on the hard drives, they would reach 100 kilometers high into the edge of space.
Yeah.
Wow.
753 gigabytes per hour, 209 gigabytes a second. Makes my network look inferior. 203, 70 million messages sent, 11.5 million video contents. But then they have, every minute that there's, 12,555 gigabytes transferred and 2.8 hours of video uploaded, and obviously what the favorite searches and the most searched terms and data traffic. Here we go. Top 20 countries by traffic: United States, Japan, UK, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Australia.
Yay! We made it. We're holding steady at whatever position that is.
10th spot, something like that. Time spent per visit. So this is how long people... Hang on, where's Australia in this one? We're up there.
Nobody can last that long.
Favorite times to watch, weekdays, weekly average.
Midnight.
11 o'clock of a night, midnight, that sort of time frame. Most views categories, most viewed world regions, gaining categories, trending. It's just a really interesting statistic to see. And then you look at certain dates and times. There you go. Traffic by phone, desktop, and tablet. So 76% is phone, 7% is tablet, and 16% is desktop.
Wow.
Which is, last year...
phone's rising.
Yeah. Last year, tablet and tablets are dropping. So does that mean it's because tablets are getting bigger, or phones are getting... phones are getting bigger and tablets getting smaller? I don't know. Traffic by phone, by destination. It's really good way to actually get usable data. There's a lot of data you can pass out of here. Traffic by consoles, by incoming search engines.
What game consoles are they watching on?
PS
Vita.
Vita.
Why are they watching on? Who the hell's got one?
Well, it's 9% of their traffic. So
whoa.
PlayStation is, I'm guessing, PS4, 51%.
Wow.
Xbox is 34%.
PlayStation went down 5%, and Xbox went up 5%. So
Nintendo 3DS, 4%.
Wow. And the Wii U.
Yeah, so incoming traffic by search engines, But if you ever need to find data on
Star Wars
search engines on May the 4th, up 748%.
Now, why would they pick that particular date, Mr. T?
Most search for video
How
games.
unusual.
Overwatch and Fortnite and Pokemon and Minecraft, the top 4.
Apex versus Fortnite.
Most search for video game characters. Zelda.
Does that mean that the
Lara
people in the
Croft.
video have to dress up as Zelda and
pretty much.
Link?
That's cosplay. So, yeah. So it's live broadcasting. Percent change in Washington, D.C. hourly traffic compared to pre-shutdown average. So, you know, they definitely...
How many politicians are watching Pornhub?
Yeah, basically. You know, worldwide holidays, what happens on worldwide holidays, you know.
Wow,
so,
that's nuts.
But there's... What was that, Australia? Here we go. What's this one? Okay, the actual search terms. So, yeah, it's a really interesting way. And if you actually... I've used this a couple of times to get statistics on stuff for work. They actually wanted to know, like, how our site was comparing on certain days for certain search terms and stuff like that. And you could actually go and look and see. This gives you the date on the averages, when the averages are up and whatever. And you can see if it was part of just a global trend of things searching, you know. And this is just one page. This page gets broken down into about 10 sub-pages.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, there's a huge amount of data there.
Like data, check it out.
At least Google stuff just...
I'll see if I can squeeze in a couple of my last two stories in the last couple of minutes we got. If you're systematically stealing money from a bank vault, it might not be a good idea to post the evidence on your social media pages.
Yeah, probably not.
A bank employee in Charlotte, North Carolina, allegedly stole $88,000 from the bank's vault, according to a release from the United States Attorney's Office, Western District of North Carolina. And he wasn't bashful about advertising to his social media followers the life of luxury he was funding. Henderson's numerous Facebook and Instagram photos depict him posing with stacks of cash, and the U.S. Attorney's Office says he used the money to make a $20,000 down payment on a new Mercedes-Benz. According to details from the indictment contained in the release, Henderson allegedly took bank customers' cash deposits out of the bank vault for months. Many of those times he deposited the money into an ATM near the bank where he worked. I made it look easy, but this shite really a process, he wrote in one Facebook post, part of a string in which he talked about building his brand. That post showing him holding a stack of money and smoking a cigarette. Henderson is now facing up to 30 years in prison. Which bank? According to the Charlotte Observer, it was Wells Fargo.
That's okay. They've been ripping people off for years, so why does it matter?
Yeah. They should hire him.
Yeah. Come and work for us.
And another quick one. Lola, a young girl who lived in Denmark 5,700 years ago, had blue eyes, dark skin, and dark hair. Her last meal included hazelnuts and mallard duck, but no milk. She couldn't stomach dairy. And the reason we know any of this is because she chewed on birch pitch, a material that functioned a bit like an ancient chewing gum. A study of that birch pitch has uncovered the girl's entire genome and oral microbiome, marking the first time human genetic material has successfully been extracted for something besides human bones. The study published Tuesday in the Journal of Nature Communications. Birch pitch was what Paleolithic people used as glue as many as 760,000 years ago. It was derived by heating the bark of birch trees, and somewhere along the way they realized they could chew it, as indicated by teeth marks found on ancient remnants of the pitch. The ancient chewing gum acted as a time capsule, storing information about her oral microbiome, the bacteria that lived in her mouth as well. Researchers were able to detect traces of DNA that revealed pathogens, including potential Epstein-Barr virus, one of the most common human viruses that can serve as the gateway to mononucleosis, also known as glandular fever. They also found the signature for pneumonia. Lola was lactose intolerant, which aligns with the idea that adults evolved the tolerance after dairy farming spread during the Neolithic Revolution. They also theorized that birch pitch was chewed to help relieve pain of a toothache, act as a toothbrush, stave off hunger, or, much like we use modern gum, simply to have something to chew. Birch pitch also contains betulin, which acts like an antiseptic. Some of the bacteria detected in the pitch included signs of gum disease, which may be why Lola, the name for where she was found on Lowland, was chewing it. I find these kind of things very fascinating.
It's interesting.
Was Lola.
Yeah, that's all I had in my head. But what's worse than that, I had the
but this is a real chick.
I had the version of that the captain in Futurama was singing to Layla. So
Leila, Layla.
So I thought that was funny. I don't know why my brain just went there straight away. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll just run with that.
Do you have anything to finish off?
One quickly. Whoops, that's the wrong. But that's the. Hang on. Just hold. Just okay. There we go.
We're professionals, damn it.
I have this mouse which is quite comfy, but it has these two stupid buttons on the side that 99% of the time don't actually do anything, even when you press them.
But sometimes
when you put your finger near it, it does things and goes backwards on the web browser. You're like, I didn't touch the button. When I press it, it doesn't work. I just sort of... Anyway. So basically there's... I won't go into too much detail, but they're talking about holidays, obviously, stressful and anxious, and there's all these different things, and they're saying how technology in general can, especially if you're not very careful with what you're doing, can make that worse. Because not only are you trying to do what you normally do during holidays, go away, get the family organised, pack, figure out presents, wrap your house in trees or whatever it is you do. But then you're adding your social media, you're adding phone calls, you're adding emails, you're adding all this other stuff that realistically our brains haven't figured out yet because we've been doing it for a few years.
Yep.
So there's a couple of different places I've seen these sort of stories on. This particular one's ZDNet, but they're not the only ones who are doing it. Basically what they're doing is they're giving you pointers on how to reduce this as much stress as possible.
They need some CBD oil.
Yeah, you do. You really do. But not necessarily, some stuff you overlook sometimes. Like, be mindful that everybody, not just you, is stressed out.
Yep.
A lot of people just forget that they think they're the only ones, or they forget that other people are having as just a harder time as they are, and, and then people like social networks, if you're somebody especially who tends to get into either a slinging match or deep and meaningfuls on social media, holidays really aren't the best time to do that because everybody's in the same mindset as you. So if you're somebody who normally gets on there and actively pushes an agenda or tries to, pick fights or tries to correct people or tries to whatever, probably just don't do it over the holidays because it's going to stress you out and it's going to stress the other person out, and you're not really going to achieve anything because nobody's going to be in the mindset to want to play that game. Other things like, be mindful of when you're reading stories, especially over Christmas when people have a lot of time on their hands. Be mindful that the stories that you're reading on Facebook or that you've watched on YouTube or whatever are legitimate stories. Now, this is the time of year, and I was reading a statistic the other day that the Christmas period traditionally sees an influx of like 2,500% of fake stories being released because people just don't have anything better to do. So stuff like that. And other things, like limit your usage of your device. Like, instead of carrying it with you all the time, even if you just, leave it on the kitchen table and check it once an hour, or unless you've got a phone call coming, don't worry about it. So from stuff like that, and then there's other other things that, okay, maybe you do actually need to go and do 300 things. Well, look at apps. Look at a scheduling app or an app that there's some apps around that say you've put a list of 10 different things you need to get from 10 different shops. It'll actually figure out the best way to do it, the best route to take, the best order to do it in for practicality and for time. And so have a look around at things like that. So if you're going to have your phone on you anyway, you might as well make it productive and make it work for you. You can pre-order a lot of stuff. You can order stuff online for pickup. You can make your experience better. Like, if you know that you've got to go to, say, Kmart, then Mr. Toys, then Big W, then all these other places, well, order your food from Woolies, order your clothes from Kmart, order it all for pickup online, and then just go and do a big loop and go and get it all.
Yep.
You know.
Or get delivery.
Yeah. And there's other things, obviously, you know, they talk about meditation, either one. But both of them work.
Together.
You know, stuff like that and whatever. And just try and take a bit of time to chill and relax. You know, it's holidays. Yeah. That's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to be running around and being insane and doing stupid, you know, like just run constantly not stopping. That's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to be doing.
Take a chill pill, man, and just relax.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't not so much a story, but just, you know, just general advice. Just chill. You know, there's no
good way for us to finish up for the year, because I don't think we'll be back until sometime next year.
Yeah, I believe they're not doing a show next week. Definitely next week, and maybe the week after. Nobody's quite sure yet. So, the one thing I do love in this article, and I'll just quickly touch on it. It says there are a lot of natural remedies out there, or a lot of pharmaceuticals that can help you, prescription pharmaceuticals that can help you. There's also some new treatments such as cannabis and CBD oils.
What a fantastic idea.
That should have been the first thing, and then new treatments like prescription medication. Like, they kind of got that a little bit backwards there, but, you know, whatever. I'm pretty sure cannabis was around before prescription medication.
Yeah, for like millions of years.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not like our body's designed to absorb it perfectly with the cannabinoid structure or anything.
No. Anyway, thanks for listening to Aussie Tech Head Show, broadcast weekly, except for the next couple of weeks, perhaps. We can be found
mostly weekly.
Facebook.com/Aussie Tech Heads, Twitter.com/Aussie Tech Heads, YouTube.com/Aussie Tech Heads, and you can email us, Glenn, Will, and Warlock at AussieTechHeads.com.au. You can hear Aussie Tech Heads on AussieTechRadio.com, 24/7 back-to-back play of some of the best tech-related shows from around Australia and New Zealand. New shows are added each Friday. Everyone, take it easy. Have a great Christmas, great New Year. Celebrate, have lots of fun. Don't go too far on the festivities. So we want to see you again next year, and you can subscribe and like.
Or go further, but make sure you send us the video.
Yeah. Stick it on Reddit. Idiots driving in cars.
All right, guys. It's been fun. We'll catch you next year.
We'll see you around.
Bye.
Bye.